Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Estate Planning for Dummies, 2nd edition, by Jordan S. Simon and Joseph Mashinsky. Narrated by Chris Sorensen. Publisher's note: this audiobook contains references to material present in the print and ebook editions of the book. Limit of liability, disclaimer of warranty. While the publisher and authors have used their best efforts in preparing this work, they make no representations or warranties with respect to the accuracy or completeness of the contents of this work, and specifically disclaim all warranties, including without limitation any implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. No warranty may be created or extended by sales representatives, written sales materials, or promotional statements for this work. The fact that an organization, website, or product is referred to in this work as a citation and/or potential source of further information does not mean that the publisher and authors endorse the information or services the organization, website, or product may provide or recommendations it may make. This work is sold with the understanding that the publisher is not engaged in rendering professional services. The advice and strategies contained herein may not be suitable for your situation. You should consult with a specialist where appropriate. Further, readers should be aware that websites listed in this work may have changed or disappeared between when this work was written and when it is read. Neither the publisher nor authors shall be liable for any loss of profit or any other commercial damages, including but not limited to special, incidental, consequential, or other damages. Introduction. Even if you're not a zillionaire who owns multiple houses, a couple of boats, and some hefty bank accounts, you still have an estate. And with that estate comes the requirement to take control of what happens to all your belongings, no matter how much or how little you actually have. After all, you can't take it with you. So how do you take control of what happens to your estate? With planning. Welcome to the world of estate planning. Estate planning applies to everyone. Yet a surprising number of people either have only done a very small part of what they need to do, usually just creating a will, which very often is out of date, or perhaps have done absolutely no estate planning at all. That's where Estate Planning for Dummies comes in. This book is especially intended for you if you have done very little or nothing on your estate planning so far and feel so overwhelmed that you don't know where to start, have done bits and pieces of your estate planning, but all those parts are disjointed, and you're concerned that you have lots of holes in your estate planning, are concerned that you may have serious shortcomings or even outright mistakes in what you've put in your will, how your insurance policies are structured, and other aspects of your estate planning. Have done a fair amount of work on your estate planning, but in a haphazard, undisciplined manner. Realize that estate planning is an ongoing, lifelong proposition, and you want to become more disciplined in how you approach your will, estate tax planning, and all the rest. In short, Estate Planning for Dummies can help you no matter where you are in the estate planning process. About this book. Estate Planning for Dummies is written in easily understood language from cover to cover with liberal use of examples. Some of the topics we cover are very basic. The estate planning fundamentals we cover in Chapter 1, for example, while other material, such as the chapters on trusts, is more advanced and complicated. If you are considering estate planning for the first time, you may want to skim through the book cover to cover just to get an idea of what's here, and then settle down and use the book as a reference on specific topics as they come up. If you've had a bit more exposure to estate planning, you may want to selectively read certain chapters and either skip or skim others. We recommend at least skimming every chapter, even if you currently have, for example, a will, a few trusts, and various types of insurance policies, and understand the basics pretty well. Foolish assumptions. The most important assumption we've made about you is that you're ready to dive into estate planning, or at least are curious about what estate planning involves. Maybe you already have a basic will, but time has passed since you prepped that will, and your life has become more prosperous and complicated, and you need to look into trusts, will substitutes, estate tax considerations, and many other topics that make up your estate. Perhaps you used an online will preparation website or even created a simple trust using a website that helps customize a trust to your particular needs. Congratulations! That's a great start. But as you'll see in this book, estate planning is about much more than simple wills and trusts. Modern family situations can get very complicated, and your wishes for your estate could be equally complicated, or maybe even convoluted. Fear not. No matter what your particular estate situation happens to be, just follow along, and we'll walk you through both simple and complex decisions and steps that you need to make. Icons used in this book. As with all For Dummies books, icons which are verbalized in this audiobook call your attention to various points we make, or try to make, about estate planning. Tip. When you hear the tip icon, the accompanying material is some action you should consider taking to make your life easier. Warning. The warning icon is exactly that. A warning of some dire consequence that may occur should you make the wrong move with your estate planning. Technical stuff. When you hear the technical stuff icon, the accompanying material falls into that category of thanks, but that's more than I really needed to know. You can certainly get the gist of any chapter's content by skipping all the technical stuff material, but if you want to get under the hood for that chapter's topic, a few moments spent with this technical stuff can help you thoroughly understand that topic, just like the estate planning professionals. Remember. The Remember icon highlights the key point or two that can help you be a better estate planner. Beyond the book. In addition to what you're reading right now, this product also comes with a free Access Anywhere cheat sheet. There you can find quick reference material about wills, trusts, and other important estate planning topics. To get this helpful content, simply go to dummies.com and type Estate Planning for Dummies cheat sheet in the search box. Where to go from here? Now it's time to dive into the world of estate planning. If you're totally new to the subject, you won't want to skip the chapters in Part 1 because they provide the foundation for the rest of the book. If you've already started your estate planning with a basic will and maybe a simple trust, we still recommend that you at least skim Part 1 to get a sense of how to get beyond all the hype, buzzwords, and generalities related to estate planning. From there, you can read the book sequentially or jump around as needed, using the table of contents and index found in the print and ebook versions of the book as your guide. Whatever works best for you is how you should proceed. Part 1. Getting started with estate planning. In this part, get the straight scoop on all your estate planning needs. Tally up everything that needs to figure into your estate plan. Chapter 1. Congratulations! You have an estate. In this chapter, understanding what your estate is, planning what will happen to your estate, realizing that your estate planning goals are different from other people's, comprehending estate planning lingo, stepping onto the critical path for estate planning, putting together your estate planning team. The protection and control that you need. No, that phrase isn't the marketing slogan for a new deodorant. Instead, it expresses the two most important reasons for you to spend time and effort on your estate planning. After you die, the government will try to take the portion of your estate that the current tax law says it's entitled to, But you have the opportunity to protect your estate by minimizing that tax bite. You want to have as much control as possible over how your estate is divided up. Basically, you want to decide what will happen to your estate rather than have a jumbled set of complicated laws dictate who will get what. You may have spent time working on a financial plan throughout your life, as well as crafting your retirement plan. Your estate plan accompanies those other two plans and makes up the third leg that supports your life's overall financial stool. Warning: without a solid estate plan, however, your financial stool can't stand on just those two other legs. Even worse, even though you may not be around to witness the complications and damage, all your hard work on your financial and retirement plans could be severely compromised in the absence of a solid estate plan. Before you can plan your estate, you need to understand what your estate really is. Many people think that for the average non-billionaire, estate planning involves only 2 steps: preparing a will, trying to figure out what inheritance and estate taxes, the so-called death taxes, apply, and if so, then how much money will go to the state and federal governments. But even though wills and death taxes are certainly important considerations, chances are your own estate planning will involve much, much more. This chapter presents the basics of estate planning that you need to get started on. In this chapter, we show you why estate planning is every bit as important as saving for your child's college education or putting money away for your retirement. In fact, your estate plan is the continuation and culmination of your personal and family financial planning. What is an estate? In the most casual sense, your estate is your stuff, all your possessions. However, even if your only familiarity with estate planning comes from watching a movie or TV show where someone's will is read, you no doubt realize that you aren't very likely to hear words like, "I leave all of my stuff to." Therefore, a bit more detail and formality is in order, which we provide in this section. The basics. Definitions and terminology. All my property. Think of that phrase when you plan your estate. What's that, you say? You live in an apartment and don't own a house or a condo or any other real estate, more formally known as real property. See the property type section later in this chapter. So you think you don't have any property? Not so fast. In a legal sense, all kinds of items are considered your property, not just real estate, including the following: cash, checking, and savings accounts, certificates of deposit, CDs, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, crypto assets such as cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens, NFTs, retirement savings in your individual retirement account, IRA, 401k, health savings account, HSA, and other special accounts. Household furniture, including antiques, clothes, vehicles, life insurance, annuities, business interests, jewelry, your baseball card collection, that autographed first edition of The Catcher in the Rye, and all the rest of your collectibles. As we discuss in the property types section, your estate consists of all the preceding types of items, and even more, divided into several different categories. For estate planning purposes, these categories are often treated differently from each other, but we cover that distinction later. The types of property listed almost always have a positive balance, meaning that they are worth something even if something is only a very small amount. Of course, an exception may be your overdrawn checking account, which then is actually property with a negative balance. So your estate also needs to account for debts that need to be subtracted from your asset values, such as the outstanding balance of the mortgage you owe on your house or a vacation home, the outstanding balance on all loans, home equity, car or student loans, the outstanding balances on your credit card accounts, taxes you owe to the government, Any IOUs to people that you haven't paid off yet. Remember, basically all debts you have are as much a part of your estate as all the positive balance items. In addition to understanding what your estate is, you also need to know what your estate is worth. You can calculate your estate's value as follows. 1. Add up the value of all the positive balance items in your estate. Again, your banking accounts, investments, collectibles, real estate, and so on. 2. Subtract the total value of all the negative balance items, the remaining balance of the mortgage on your home, how much you still owe on your credit cards, and so on, from the total of all the positive balance items. The result is the net value of your estate, which you could think of as your personal balance sheet. In most cases, the result is a positive number, meaning that what you have is worth more than what you owe. Technical stuff. If calculating a net value by subtracting the total of what you owe from the total of what you have seems familiar, you're right. In the simplest sense, calculating the value of your estate involves essentially the same steps that you follow when you apply for many different types of loans: mortgage, automobile, educational assistance, and so on. Warning. However, in many cases, including perhaps your own, determining what the parts of your estate are and what they're worth can be a bit more complicated than simply creating 2 columns on a sheet of paper or in your computer's spreadsheet program and doing basic arithmetic. If you're a farmer, for example, you need to figure out the value of your crops or livestock. If you own a small one-person business, you need to calculate what your business is worth. Or perhaps you and 6 other people are joint owners of a complicated real estate investment partnership. If so, what is your share worth? In Chapter 2, we discuss more technical and sometimes more complicated ways to determine your estate's value. For now, another point to keep in mind is that in addition to what you have right now, your estate may also include other items that you don't have in your possession but will at some point in the future, such as any future payments you expect to receive, such as an insurance settlement, or the remaining 18 annual payments from that $35 million lottery jackpot that you won a couple of years ago. A loan you made to your sibling to help get their business started that they will eventually repay. Tip. For planning purposes, you also want to consider future inheritances you may receive, which might be part of your estate when you die. See the nearby sidebar, The Ripple Effect. Warning: the ripple effect. The old saying, "Don't count your chickens before they're hatched," can definitely be applied in estate planning as it relates to future inheritances you're supposed to receive and then in turn pass on to others as part of your own estate plan. For example, your grandparents, parents, and other loved ones, your benefactors, may have informed you that they have provided you with an inheritance, money, property, or something else of monetary value in their own estate plans. However, you know how things in life often change. Changes in a benefactor's circumstances, such as a health issue that requires unplanned healthcare costs, can easily eat into or even evaporate your inheritance. Accordingly, when it comes to these future inheritances that are eventually supposed to be heading your way, you need to keep the uncertainty factor in mind and make adjustments as necessary in your own estate plan. Essentially, unforeseen changes to the estate of one of your own benefactors could ripple into unforeseen changes in your own estate. If you're familiar with the business and accounting term accounts receivable, what people or businesses owe to you, you need to include your own personal accounts receivable along with your banking accounts and home when figuring out what your estate contains and what your estate is worth. One final term to cover is estate planning. By definition, estate planning means to plan your estate, of course. More precisely, you need to follow a disciplined set of steps that we discuss later in this chapter. Why? because you want to protect as much of your estate as possible from being taken away, and because you want to control what happens to your estate after you die. An estate plan allows you to preserve as much as you can for your beneficiaries, family members, lifelong friends, or maybe even your favorite charities. Remember, your estate plan typically includes the following: your will, documents that substitute for your will, called, big surprise, will substitutes; trusts, tax considerations with the idea of minimizing the overall amount of taxes you have to pay; various types of insurance, such as life insurance and long-term care insurance; items related to your own particular circumstances, such as protecting your business or setting aside money to pay for your health care or a nursing home in your later years. All these aspects of estate planning are discussed in this book. If this collection of estate planning activities seems a bit overwhelming, think of estate planning as a parallel to how you plan your personal finances and investments. Your investment portfolio may be made up of individual stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and exchange-traded funds, ETFs, along with bank CDs or other savings-related investments. And then, within each type of investment, you have further categories, for example, different types of mutual funds that you may want to use. Your investment objective is to sort through this menu of choices and put together just the right collection for your needs. You must also do the same with your estate plan. You need to have the right will and insurance coverage, possibly accompanied by trusts if they make sense for you and your family. See Chapter 7. You may need additional estate planning activities and strategies particular to your own needs. Property types. You can have several types of property within your estate. Make a distinction between these types of property because various aspects of your estate planning treat each type differently. For example, in your will, see Chapter 3, you can use different legal language when referring to various types of property, so remember to keep these definitions and distinctions straight. Earlier, we mentioned one type of property, real property, and note that real property refers to various types of real estate, including the following: your home, a house, condominium, co-op apartment, or some other type of primary residence that you own; a second home, such as a vacation property on a lake or near a ski resort; a piece of a vacation home, such as a timeshare; fractional ownership in real estate, through companies such as Picasso and Arrived; any kind of vacant land, such as a building lot in a suburban development, or even agricultural land you may own next to your main farm; any investment real property that you own either by yourself or with someone else, such as a house you rent out through Airbnb or Vrbo or on your own, or your share of an apartment building. Technical stuff. In addition to the actual real property itself, your estate also includes any improvements that you can't even see. For example, if you and 3 of your friends bought 200 acres of land with the intention of turning that land into a subdivision, and you've spent loads of money on infrastructure, water lines and hookups, sewer lines and hookups, in-ground electricity and cable, and so on, then those improvements, or more accurately, your share of those improvements, are also considered to be part of your estate along with the original real property itself. In addition to real property, your estate includes personal property, which is further divided into 2 categories. Remember, tangible personal property. Your tangible personal property includes possessions that you can touch, such as your car, jewelry, furniture, paintings and artwork, and collectibles, baseball and sports cards, autographed first-edition novels, and so on. Your house is considered to be real property, but not tangible personal property, even though you can touch it. Why? because your house is permanently attached to, and thus made a part of, the land upon which it is built. Intangible personal property. Your intangible personal property consists of financially oriented assets, such as your bank accounts, stocks, mutual funds, bonds, and your IRA. Technical stuff. Technically, that stock certificate or mutual fund statement isn't actually what you own. It represents your portion of the ownership of some company, in the case of the stock certificate, or your portion of that mutual fund in the company's stocks in which it invests. Sound confusing? Don't worry. Just keep in mind that financially oriented paper assets are typically intangible personal property, while actual possessions are tangible personal property. If you have any doubt as to what category any particular item of your possessions fall into, just ask one of your estate planning team members. Are NFTs real, tangible, or intangible? What about those trendy yet sometimes perplexing non-fungible tokens, or NFTs? Aren't NFTs imaginary? After all, a digital image of a baseball card or a bored ape isn't really a physical baseball card or an actual piece of artwork featuring that really popular bored ape. Essentially, you have sort of a receipt recorded on a digital ledger, called a blockchain, that tells the world that you own that image. Still, for estate planning purposes, you can think of an NFT as just one more type of intangible personal property. In fact, you can draw a parallel between an NFT and the way you would own today, say, 100 shares of Tesla stock. You no longer have a physical stock certificate featuring elegant lettering stating that you own those Tesla shares. Instead, your Tesla shares are electronically recorded out in cyberspace. You'll find some differences between how your Tesla shares are recorded versus how your ownership of an NFT is established. Most likely, your ownership of stocks, bonds, and mutual fund shares are recorded in some type of traditional database, whereas NFTs are part of the world of blockchains and cryptocurrency. However, the movement toward the so-called Web 3.0 could eventually provide a blockchain underpinning for your stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, just like your NFTs. The good news, though, is that for your estate planning purposes, you don't need to worry about blockchains and Web 3.0 and all that. You only need to know that if you jumped into the NFT game, you would treat those NFTs that you own as intangible personal property rather than real property. Types of property interest. For each of the 3 types of property in your estate, real, tangible personal, and intangible personal, you also need to understand what your interest is. Of course I'm interested in my property, you may be thinking. After all, it's my property, isn't it? In the world of estate planning, interest has a somewhat different definition from how that word is used in everyday language, or even as the word is often used in the financial world. For example, interest that you earn on a CD or pay on a loan. And more important, the specific type of interest in any given property determines what you specifically need to be concerned about for your estate planning. Property interest is an essential part of almost all your estate planning, from the words that you put in your will, chapters 3 through 6, to how you may set up a trust, chapter 7, for 2 very important reasons. You need to clearly understand what type of interest you have in your property so you can make accurate decisions about how to handle your property when you plan your estate. As you decide what to write in your will, and perhaps also set up trusts as part of your estate plan, you need to make decisions about what type of interest in each property that you want to set up for your children, your spouse, other family members, or institutions such as charities. The 2 main types of property interest are legal interest, beneficial interest. If you only have a legal interest in a property, you have the right to transfer or manage that property, but you don't have the right to use the property yourself. For example, Part 3 of this book discusses the very important and very complicated subject of trusts that may be an essential part of your estate planning. By way of a very brief
Sample complete. Ready to continue?